The impossible return commander Sarah Chun was reviewing supply reports when the universe decided to break all the rules she thought she knew. The coffee in her mug began to ripple in perfect circles, even though nothing was shaking. On the observation deck of New Geneva Space Station, the stars themselves seemed to bend and twist like someone was stirring them with an invisible spoon. Commander Chun to the bridge, emergency alert. A RIS, calm voice announced through the station's communication system. Sarah had never heard the I sound anything but perfectly composed, but today there was something different in her tone, something that might have been wonder or fear. Sarah rushed through the station's corridors, her boots echoing against the metal floors. New Geneva was humanity's furthest outpost, a research station positioned at the edge of known space where scientists studied the void between galaxies. It was supposed to be quiet, peaceful, and utterly predictable. The bridge was chaos when she arrived. Dr. Marcus Webb stood frozen at his sensor station, his face pale as moonlight. Captain Elena Vasquez was shouting orders to her security team, but her voice cracked with disbelief. Through the massive viewport, space itself was wrong. "Report," Sarah commanded, trying to keep her voice steady. Dr. Webb turned to her with eyes wide as saucers. "Commander, something is coming through space, but it's not using any form of propulsion we understand. It's not moving through space, it's moving space itself." Sarah looked at the main display screen. The sensors showed a massive object approaching, but the readings made no sense. According to the instruments, the object was simultaneously 500 meters long and 50 kilometers long, depending on which sensor you checked. It was moving at light speed and standing perfectly still. It existed in normal space and folded space at the same time. "That's impossible," Sarah said. But even as she spoke, she knew impossible was becoming the new normal. Captain Vasquez stepped up beside her. "Commander, I've got my security teams on high alert, but honestly, if whatever that thing is wants to hurt us, I don't think our weapons would even scratch it." The object was getting closer, and as it approached, Sarah could see its shape more clearly. It was a ship, definitely human in design, but changed in ways that made her head hurt to look at directly. The hull seemed to flow like liquid metal, and lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that reminded her of a heartbeat. "Aria, run identification scans," Sarah ordered. "Scans complete, Commander," Aria replied immediately. "The vessel is the colony ship Stellar Phoenix, Earth registration number CS2847, last known location, deep space, en route to Andromeda Galaxy, missing for 20 years, 3 months, and 17 days. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the station's systems. Sarah felt her legs go weak. The Stellar Phoenix had been humanity's greatest achievement, a massive colony ship carrying 50,000 volunteers to establish humanity's first foothold in another galaxy. When it vanished without a trace, it had been the worst disaster in human history. "That's impossible," Dr. Webb whispered. "The Phoenix was destroyed. It had to be. No ship could survive 20 years in deep space without resupply." "Commander," Captain Vasquez said softly, "I'm receiving a transmission." "Put it through," Sarah ordered. Static filled the bridge for a moment. Then a voice came through the speakers. Clear and unmistakably human, but with something else underneath it, something that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "New Geneva Station, this is Captain David Torres of the Stellar Phoenix. We request permission to dock. We have critical information about a threat to all existence." Sarah's hand went to her throat. David Torres had been the Phoenix's captain 20 years ago, but he should be an old man now, if he was even still alive. The voice speaking to them sounded exactly like she remembered from the historical records, young and strong and confident. "Captain Torres," Sarah managed to say into her microphone, "this is Commander Chun. We need to verify your identity." The Phoenix was lost 20 years ago. A pause, then a sound that might have been laughter. Commander, I understand your confusion. Ask me anything you want to verify. But please understand, we don't have much time. The Void Seekers have found our galaxy, and they're coming. Dr. Webb stepped forward. Captain, what was the Phoenix's mission designation? Operation New Dawn, Torres replied immediately. Establish permanent human presence in Andromeda, specifically targeting the Kepler 442 system. We carried 50,000 colonists and enough supplies for a 10-year establishment. Period. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. That information was classified. Only someone who had actually been on the Phoenix would know those details. Where have you been for 20 years? She asked. That's complicated, Commander. We were pulled into what we thought was a black hole, but it was actually a gateway to the space between universes. We encountered beings called the Architects of Light, who saved us from something much worse. They've been preparing us for what's coming. Captain Vasquez was checking her instruments. Commander, that ship is maintaining a perfect position relative to our station, but according to our sensors, it's not using any engines. It's just floating there, defying orbital mechanics. The Phoenix was close enough now that Sarah could see details that made her skin crawl. The ship's surface rippled like water, and symbols glowed along its hull in patterns that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. Strange geometric shapes floated around the vessel, connected by streams of light that pulsed in complex rhythms. Captain Torres, Sarah said, you're cleared to dock at Bay 12, but understand that you'll be met by full security teams. Of course, Commander, we would expect nothing less. But I should warn you, we're not exactly the same people who left Earth 20 years ago. We've been changed, enhanced, to prepare for what's coming. The Phoenix began to move toward the docking bay. As it approached, Sarah could see that the ship was somehow larger inside than outside. Through transparent sections of the hull, she glimpsed vast chambers that couldn't possibly fit within the ship's external dimensions. Lights moved through the corridors like living things, and she caught glimpses of figures that might have been human, but glowed with soft inner light. Dr. Webb, she said, I want a full analysis of that ship's technology. Whatever they've learned out there, it's beyond anything we've ever seen. Commander, Dr. Webb said, his voice shaking, I've been analyzing their energy signatures. That ship is producing more power than our entire star system. If they wanted to destroy us, they could do it without even trying. The Phoenix settled into the docking bay with impossible grace, making no sound as it connected with the station's umbilical. Through the viewports, Sarah could see figures moving toward the airlock, but they moved strangely, as if they were swimming through thick liquid instead of walking through air. Captain Vasquez, Sarah said, I want 20 security officers in that docking bay, but keep their weapons powered down. If these really are our people, they deserve to come home. And if they're not? Vasquez asked. Sarah watched the airlock cycle. Then we're about to find out what 20 years in the void between universes does to human beings. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The first person to step out looked exactly like Captain David Torres from the historical records. But something was different. His skin seemed to glow with soft inner light, and his eyes held depths that reminded Sarah of looking into deep space. He wore a uniform that looked like standard Earth issue, but the fabric shimmered and moved as if it were alive. Asterisk. Commander Chun, Torres said, and his voice carried harmonics that made her feel like she was listening to music. Thank you for allowing us to dock. I know this must be overwhelming. Behind him came other figures, all recognizable as human, but changed. They moved with perfect coordination, as if they were all part of the same organism. Their eyes glowed with soft light, and when they spoke, Their voices carried the same musical quality as Torres. "Captain," Sarah said, "what happened to you out there?" Torres smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like the man who had left Earth 20 years ago. "We found something, Commander. Or rather, it found us. The universe is much larger and more dangerous than we ever imagined. There are beings out there that exist to unmake reality itself, to erase entire galaxies from existence." Dr. Webb stepped forward with his scanner. "Captain, I need to run some basic scans. These readings don't make sense." "Of course, Doctor." "Scan away. You'll find we're still human, just enhanced. The architects of light gave us the tools we need to fight what's coming." As Dr. Webb ran his scanner, his face went pale. "Commander, their DNA is still human, but it's been woven together with something else, something that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously." Torres nodded. "The enhancement process allows us to think and act in ways that the Void Seekers cannot predict or counter. Humans have always been unpredictable, but now we're unpredictable on a cosmic scale." "What are these Void Seekers?" Sarah asked. Torres's expression grew serious. "They're beings from outside our reality who consume entire universes. They've already destroyed countless galaxies, erasing them so completely that it's as if they never existed. They're coming to our galaxy next, and they'll be here within 6 months." The docking bay fell silent. Sarah felt the weight of the universe pressing down on her shoulders. "What do they want?" "Everything," Torres said simply. "They want to consume our galaxy, our reality, and every trace that we ever existed. But, Commander, humanity has something they've never encountered before. We have chaos, creativity, and the ability to find solutions that should be impossible. And you think that's enough to stop beings that can destroy galaxies?" Captain Vasquez asked. Torres smiled again, and this time his entire body seemed to glow brighter. "Captain, in the 20 years we've been away, we've learned that the universe runs on rules. But humans have always been excellent at breaking rules. The Void Seekers understand order, logic, and predictable patterns. They don't understand jazz music, abstract art, or why humans would risk everything to save people they've never met." "So what happens now?" Sarah asked. "Now we prepare Earth for the fight of its existence. We need to enhance more ships, more people, and we need to teach humanity to think in ways that will make the Void Seekers' ordered minds break down completely." Dr. Webb looked up from his scanner. "Captain, the enhancement process, is it safe?" "Safe is a relative term, Doctor. The process has a 95% success rate, but it changes you permanently. You become more than human while remaining human. You can think faster, see further, and understand concepts that normal minds cannot grasp." "And the other 5%? Sarah asked. Torres's expression grew sad. "They don't survive the process. The quantum energy required for enhancement is too much for some human nervous systems to handle." Sarah looked around the docking bay at the enhanced humans from the Phoenix. They stood perfectly still, but she could sense incredible power held in check, like lightning waiting to be released. "How many people would need to be enhanced?" she asked. "As many as we can get," Torres said. "Because when the Void Seekers arrive, every enhanced human might be the difference between survival and never having existed at all." Through the viewports, Sarah could see Earth's sun shining peacefully in the distance. But now she knew that peace was an illusion. Somewhere in the void between galaxies, cosmic horrors were moving toward them, bringing an end that was worse than death. "Captain Torres," she said, "I think it's time you told us everything. The human solution, the briefing room aboard New Geneva Station, had never held so many impossible things at once." Captain David Torres stood at the center of the room, his enhanced form casting shadows that seemed to move independently of his body. Beside him stood a being that made Sarah's eyes water to look at directly. "This is Zephyr," Torres said. gesturing to the crystalline figure beside him. "She's a representative of the architects of light, the beings who saved us and prepared us for this moment." Zephyr stood nearly 8 feet tall, her body composed of what looked like living crystal that pulsed with inner light. When she moved, reality seemed to bend around her, and when she spoke, her voice carried the sound of distant stars singing. "Greetings, humans of New Geneva," Zephyr said, her words vibrating through the air and into everyone's bones. "I bring knowledge of the great darkness that approaches your reality." Dr. Webb was frantically taking notes, his scanner beeping continuously. "Commander, the energy readings from this being are off the charts. She exists in at least 7 dimensions." Simultaneously, Admiral Catherine Ross had arrived from Earthfleet Command an hour ago, her face grim with the weight of command. She'd brought with her a team of Earth's top scientists and military leaders, all of whom now sat in stunned silence. "Captain Torres," Admiral Ross said, "explain to us exactly what we're facing." Torres activated a holographic projector that filled the room with a 3-dimensional map of the local galaxy cluster. Dark spots appeared throughout the display, spreading like an infection. "The Void Seekers," Torres began, "are not beings in the way we understand them. They're concepts, given form, the embodiment of entropy and ending. They exist to bring all things to a state of perfect order, which means perfect death." The hologram changed to show a solar system. As they watched, the stars began to fade, not exploding or dying, but simply ceasing to exist. Planets dissolved into nothing, and even the space between them began to collapse. "They don't just destroy," Zephyr added, her musical voice filling the room. "They unmake. When the Void Seekers consume a galaxy, it's as if that galaxy never existed. The stars, the planets, the civilizations, even the memory of them gets erased from reality." Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. "What happens to the people?" "They experience something worse than death," Torres said quietly. "They become trapped in the space between existence and nothing, aware but unable to affect anything. Unable to even scream." Dr. Webb looked up from his scanner. "How is that possible? You can't just erase matter from existence." Zephyr moved closer to the doctor, and he gasped as reality rippled around her. "Your understanding of matter is limited to 3 dimensions. The Void Seekers operate across infinite dimensions. They can reach into the quantum foundation of reality and simply turn off the switch that says this exists." Admiral Ross leaned forward. "How many galaxies have they destroyed? In this universe alone?" Torres checked the holographic display. "Approximately 12,000 galaxies over the last 1,000,000 years. Each one erased so completely that even the cosmic background radiation doesn't remember they were there." The room fell silent except for the hum of the station's life support systems. Sarah looked around at the faces of Earth's best and brightest, all of them pale with shock. "Why are they coming here?" she asked. "Because we're next," Torres said. "Simply, the Void Seekers move through galaxies in a pattern, bringing order to chaos. Our galaxy is full of chaos, especially around systems with intelligent life. We're a priority target." "But you said humanity has something they've never encountered before," Captain Vasquez said. "What exactly?" Torres smiled, and for a moment, his enhanced features looked completely human. "Chaos. Beautiful, unpredictable, creative human chaos. The Void Seekers understand order, logic, and predictable patterns. They can counter any defense that follows rules. But humans," Zephyr added, "create solutions that should be impossible. They fight battles they cannot win and find ways to succeed anyway. They take broken things and make them into art. They love irrationally and sacrifice themselves for abstract concepts." Dr. Webb was shaking his head. "You're talking about using human unpredictability as a weapon against cosmic forces." "That's insane." "Exactly. Torres said with a grin. It's completely insane, which is why it might work. The Void Seekers have never encountered a species that would try to communicate with them by composing music or attempt to solve mathematical equations by throwing paint at a wall. Admiral Ross stood up. Captain, are you seriously suggesting that human creativity can stop beings that erase galaxies? I'm suggesting that human creativity, enhanced by architect technology, can create solutions that the Void Seekers cannot predict or counter, Torres replied. Let me show you what I mean. He walked to the center of the room and held up his hands. Light began to flow between his fingers, but it wasn't normal light. It moved in patterns that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, creating shapes that hurt to look at directly. This is quantum architecture, Torres explained. The ability to build structures that exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Void Seekers can erase things that exist in normal space, but they have trouble with things that exist in multiple states at once. He gestured, and the light formed into a complex geometric pattern that seemed to fold in on itself. This is a defensive structure that exists and doesn't exist at the same time. It's there when you need it to be, and not there when you don't. How is that possible? Dr. Webb asked. Because humans don't let impossibilities stop them, Zephyr said. Your species has a unique ability to hold contradictory concepts in your mind simultaneously. You can believe in something while doubting it, love someone while being angry with them, and hope for the best while preparing for the worst. Torres nodded. The enhancement process amplifies this ability. Enhanced humans can exist in multiple quantum states, think in paradoxes, and create solutions that break the fundamental laws of logic. What would the enhancement process involve? Admiral Ross asked. Torres's expression grew serious. It requires volunteers to undergo quantum consciousness merging with architect technology. The process bonds human neural patterns with multidimensional energy structures. It's permanent and irreversible. And the risks? Sarah asked. 5% of volunteers don't survive the process, Torres said honestly. Their nervous systems can't handle the quantum energy required. But those who do survive become something new, something that can fight the Void Seekers on their own level. Zephyr stepped forward. Admiral Ross, your galaxy has approximately 6 months before the first Void Seeker scouts arrive. We need to enhance at least 10,000 humans to have a chance of stopping them. 10,000 people, Admiral Ross repeated. That's a lot of volunteers for a process that might kill them. The alternative is the complete erasure of everything, Torres said. Every human who ever lived, every work of art, every piece of music, every moment of love or laughter. All of it gone as if it never existed. Dr. Webb was still taking notes. Captain, can you demonstrate more of these enhanced abilities? Torres looked at Zephyr, who nodded. He walked to the viewport and placed his hand against the transparent aluminum. The entire window began to glow, and suddenly they could see through it in ways that defied physics. Enhanced perception, Torres explained. We can see across multiple dimensions, through time, and into the quantum structure of reality itself. Through the enhanced viewport, they could see the Void Seekers approach. Dark shapes moved through the space between galaxies, each one the size of a solar system. They moved with terrible purpose, leaving trails of absolute nothingness behind them. Dear God, Admiral Ross whispered, how many of them are there? Thousands, Torres said. Maybe tens of thousands. They're like a swarm of cosmic locusts, consuming everything in their path. Sarah stared at the approaching darkness. How do we fight something like that? With everything we have, Torres said. Enhanced humans, quantum weapons, and most importantly, with the one thing that makes us human. Which is? Admiral Ross asked. Hope, Torres said simply. The Void Seekers don't understand hope. They can't comprehend why beings would fight against impossible odds or sacrifice themselves for others. They expect logical responses to logical problems. But humans, Zephyr added, respond to impossible problems with impossible solutions. They create beauty in the face of destruction, find humor in tragedy, and love in the midst of hate. Torres activated another holographic display, this one showing Earth's current military capabilities. We'll need to enhance your entire fleet. Admiral, every ship, every weapon system, every communication array. We need to turn Earth's military into something that operates on quantum principles. And the personnel? Admiral Ross asked. We'll need volunteers from every branch of Earth's military, plus civilians with strong creative backgrounds. Artists, musicians, writers, inventors, people who think outside the box. Dr. Webb looked up from his scanner. Why creative people specifically? Because creativity is chaos made productive, Torres explained. The Void Seekers can predict and counter logical military strategies, but they can't predict what a jazz musician will do when faced with a cosmic horror. Admiral Ross stood up and walked to the viewport. Beyond the transparent aluminum, space looked peaceful and normal, but they all knew that peace was an illusion. Captain Torres, she said, I need to contact Earth Command immediately. This decision is beyond my authority. Admiral, Torres said, with respect, this decision is beyond anyone's authority. We're talking about the survival of our entire species, our entire reality. Sometimes you have to make the impossible choice and hope it's the right one. Zephyr moved to stand beside the Admiral. Admiral Ross, your people have already begun volunteering. The message is spreading through your communication networks. Humans are remarkable in their willingness to sacrifice for others. What message? Admiral Ross asked. Torres smiled. The message about the enhancement process, about the chance to become something more than human to save humanity. Applications are already pouring in from across Earth and all the colonies. Sarah felt a mixture of hope and terror. How many volunteers so far? 50,000 and counting, Torres said. Apparently, when humans are faced with extinction, they don't back down. They step forward. Admiral Ross looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military and scientific leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're about to find out what humanity is really made of. Through the enhanced viewport, the Void Seekers continued their approach, dark shapes moving through the cosmos with terrible purpose. But for the first time since the Phoenix had arrived, Sarah felt something that might have been hope. Captain Torres, she said, when do we begin? Torres looked at Zephyr, who nodded. We begin now, Commander, because in 6 months we're going to show the Void Seekers something they've never seen before. What's that? Sarah asked. What happens when you try to erase humanity from existence? Torres said with a grin that seemed to light up the entire room. Spoiler alert, we don't go quietly. The briefing room filled with the sound of determined voices as Earth's leaders began planning for the impossible. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, but now they danced to the rhythm of human defiance, human creativity, and human hope. The Void Seekers were coming, but humanity would be ready. Asterisk.